All right, let's dive right into an explainer on a story that has absolutely captivated and honestly outraged the entire internet. We're looking at a narrative that has just been spreading like wildfire across social media, detailing what sounds like an unthinkable miscarriage of justice. It's all about a single, mundane accident that allegedly swallowed a young boy's entire life. But, as we're going to see, whether this specific tale is literal fact or just internet fiction, it shines a glaring spotlight on a very real, heavily documented crisis. We have to start with this chilling quote from the viral story. It's about a boy who was allegedly out hawking sugarcane in Maiduguri when literally one mistake ended his life as he knew it. According to the account everyone's sharing, this 13-year-old kid was pushing a wheelbarrow his dad had hired for just 20 kobo on a blisteringly hot day. He's seeking some shade under a tree to rest, and he accidentally scratches and breaks the headlight of a parked car. He waited 30 minutes for the owner to show up so he could apologize, but, when the owner finally arrived, the boy's absolute nightmare began. Section 1, 47 years for a headlight, a missing childhood. If we track the timeline of this incredible claim, it outlines a staggering 47-year journey through the prison system. We're talking about going from a frightened 13-year-old on remand all the way to a 60-year-old man known simply as Baba behind bars. The account claims the car owner was actually a police officer who drew a pistol to threaten bystanders and then just threw the boy into a cell. After a month, the boy was taken to court, but the court didn't even sit, so he was remanded to Maiduguri prison. By age 15, he was transferred to Bauchi, which kicked off decades of being shuffled to prisons across the East, West, and eventually Kano. And that is where a visiting governor finally stopped and asked him how long he had been there. It creates this horrifying contrast at the very heart of the viral narrative. On one hand, you have a life entirely stolen, and on the other, a life of unchecked power and privilege. According to the account, when the governor investigated, they found the arresting officer had actually become a powerful king, an emir. When confronted, this monarch allegedly offered to build the victim house and find him a wife to make up for it. But the victim? He was entirely institutionalized. He lost all contact of his family. So he refused the offer, stating his life was prison now and he would never, ever forgive the man who took his youth. Moving on to Section 2. Fact, fiction, and controversy. The viral debate. With stories that move this incredibly fast across social media, we really have to pause for a second. We have to ask ourselves, are we looking at reality, or is this a manufactured parable? I mean, it hits literally every emotional trigger, right? An innocent child, a blatant abuse of power, a shocking passage of time, and this super dramatic final confrontation. But is it actually real? Well, the crucial point here is that local commentators and skeptics are actively calling this out as a piece of internet fiction. Take commentators like Bashir Aliyu Lamanchi, who have explicitly stated there is absolutely zero evidence to support the story. Skeptics are pointing out the glaring lack of verifiable names, like who was the governor? Who is this emir? What is the victim's name? Without those details, a lot of people argue it's simply a fabricated tale designed specifically to go viral. But actually, scratch that. Whether this specific man exists or not almost doesn't matter, because we are going to use this viral tale to expose a terrifying, verified reality about the justice system. Think of the story as a Trojan horse. It uses this captivating and maybe fictional narrative to sneak a very real, very ugly truth right into the public consciousness. And that is the systemic abuse of children in the Nigerian justice system. Let's dig into Section 3, Nigeria's Child Justice Crisis, the systemic reality. On paper, the law is actually incredibly clear that children need special legal safeguards. They should never be subjected to adult penal processes. The Child Rights Act of 2003 explicitly states that children are mentally and physically immature. It literally mandates that no child should be subjected to torture, cruel treatment, or imprisonment with adults. So the framework for protection, it absolutely exists. But out in the real world, there is a complete systemic collapse. Because so many states lack the specialized children's police units and designated family courts, police often bypass the Child Rights Act entirely. And how do they do it? By simply lying about a child's age on the charge sheet so they can try them as adults in regular courts. The end result is minors being routinely detained in the exact same cells as hardened adult criminals. And sometimes it's simply because they couldn't pay a minor fine. 8,300. To put that into perspective, that is the staggering number of inmates pardoned by the Nigerian government since just 2022. Now, while pardons are usually framed as these grand acts of mercy, Researchers point out that relying on executive pardons actually highlights a deeply, deeply flawed judicial process. Instead of a functioning system that swiftly and fairly processes cases, you end up with a backlog of forgotten people, many of whom are swept up as minors, just waiting years or even decades for a governor or a president to simply notice them and grant them amnesty. Section 4. Horrors Behind Bars. The Maiduguri Reality. Imagine being a child locked up with hardened criminals just because you couldn't pay a fine for an environmental sanitation offense. It sounds crazy, right? But that is exactly what happened in 2017. When the chief judge of Lagos visited these prisons, he found over 80 children inside. Reports noted they were malnourished, untidy, and could barely walk. They had been arrested by task forces, processed as adults, and thrown into maximum security over sanitation violations. And the situation in Maiduguri, which happens to be the exact setting of our viral story, is particularly grim. Reports from human rights groups objectively document an absolute nightmare. In 2019, Amnesty International released a report detailing widespread sexual abuse against children who were forced to share cells with adults in the Maiduguri maximum security prison. And former detainees have independently confirmed these horrific conditions. To truly grasp the severity of this, you have to look at the documented account from Charles Oka's 2019 prison diary. He detailed how an 11-year-old boy, suffering from a mental condition similar to autism, had been held in Maiduguri prison since he was just 8 years old, kept in a cell with condemned criminals. When you read verified, documented accounts of an 8-year-old locked away like this, suddenly that viral story of a 13-year-old losing 47 years of his life doesn't really seem like fiction at all. It seems terrifyingly plausible. Section 5. The Path to Reform. Enforcing the Law. So, researchers make it very clear. Passing laws like the Child Rights Act isn't nearly enough. We need aggressive enforcement. First up, there has to be strict supervision of police to completely stop the practice of age inflation on charge sheets. Second, states must actually establish the specialized children's police units and family courts that the law already mandates. And third, there must be dedicated, properly funded child correctional and rehabilitation facilities. Minors should never, under any circumstances, set foot in an adult prison. I'll leave you with this thought to ponder as we wrap up our explainer today. A viral myth about a broken headlight in a stolen 47 years managed to capture our collective attention and spark real outrage. But now that we see the real, systemic nightmare happening to thousands of actual children every single day, will we maintain that outrage? If the laws to protect them are already on the books, what will it actually take for us to demand they are enforced?